Well, what's going on, everybody? I am BirdDog John. Welcome back to another round of BirdDog Live, I guess we're calling it, and my new interview style format, which currently is just me in here, but that's all good because I do want to go over a couple of things today. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to check the audio on YouTube. All right, so that sounds pretty good. Hopefully, you can hear that well enough. I'm going to jump into the chat and just make sure I'm keeping an eye on that too. So today I had a request. Hey, what's going on, Daniel? Today I had not today, this week I had a request from one of our distributors overseas to give kind of a general rundown of Access Manager from NewTek NDI, and then talk about how it integrates in with BirdDog products. So I'm going to do that here this morning. And if my coworkers join me or not, we'll throw them in here as well. But in general, I do want to kind of cover this because it is kind of a feature that we don't normally talk about too much. And well, there are lots of things to talk about with Access Manager. So we can talk about how it can improve your design or how it can overcomplicate your design. And so I want to be sure to give like the devil his due because it can really introduce some great features, but also, can be a bit of a problem. So, yeah, we're going to talk about that today. I don't have any snacks in here other than I just ate like my small lunch. So I don't have anything lined up for snacks on stream today, but we will go back to ramen on Thursday and give that a go. So that'll be the plan. And also, one of the guys in the office we gave, or he has, I don't know, I think maybe it was Balu that gave it to Senseless, and it's like a garden veggie Pocky. I don't know if you're familiar with what those are. Let me pull that up on the Google last week. But yeah, basically this. But it's the garden veggie version. Hang on one second. There we go. So this Pocky, I have never like consciously had this. And so Balu said he was going to hook me up one of these days and bring it in. And so that's great. But Senseless has like the garden veggie version. So let's just veg. Let's see if that one shows up. No, that's not what we're looking for here. Maybe I spelt it wrong. Did I spell it wrong? I spelled it wrong. Hockey sticks. I know it says garden something on the label. So let's see if we can find that. Basically, it's like this. But and it's not made by this brand. It's from some Japanese brand that we got it in some like variety bag. So, anyways, there you go. And I don't know if he's going to eat these on stream or if he's just going to eat them and tell us about them. But anyways, whenever Senseless comes around, we'll see what his plan is with that. So yeah, I want to talk about Access Manager, and I probably won't waste too much time here working up to that because I want to get that done, and then I'll cut it up so that we can put it on the knowledge database or at least on YouTube or something where people can access that. So let's jump into this, and I'll tell you kind of how I understand it and see it from a support standpoint, where Access Manager kind of shines, but also then how you can use it with the BirdDog stuff and integrate it across our platform and theirs. In short, Access Manager is really a product that allows you to get outside of the expected configuration for NDI. Okay, so there's kind of an unsaid expectation when it comes to integrating an NDI network, and there's easier ways of doing it, and then there are more complex ways of doing it. And so depending on how, and I just realized Daniel's thing is still up here. Depending on how you want to design your network, and it really is about that. It is really a network design thing. A lot of guys just want to unbox things and plug them in, and that's the traditional understanding of plug and play. But when we're talking about high performance video, you don't really get too far until thanks, Daniel. You don't really get too far without starting to customize things and understanding that the network is really one of the catalysts that provides you with good, solid, high performance video. So you can get away with one or two sources on an unsophisticated network. But once you kind of get outside of that realm where you want to do things and delivering the packets and every packet becomes more mission critical, you want to start examining, okay, what are we using to actually transport the packets out of the BirdDog and then across to wherever we're using. The thing about the BirdDog device is it is concerned about getting the packet out the port. That's it. It's not concerned about navigating your network. It's not concerned about figuring out, making sure that the packets are getting across correctly. It's not doing anything like that. It's making sure that every packet is getting out of the NIC card on the device itself. Beyond that, it really doesn't care. You can tell the BirdDog to, expect certain things or a certain configuration or whatever, but really, at the end of the day, it doesn't care. It just wants to get that video packet out of the port. And when you start seeing problems, I mean, it can be directly related to the camera, but it's actually quite uncommon. It's more common that the network isn't able to traffic the data. And people don't realize how much data we're really talking about here because, you know, for StreamYard, for example, we're probably running 4 or 5 megs tops. We're bringing in video and it's coming in as a webcam, and then it's just basically being added as a source locally and inside Chrome, and then going up to a cloud service and being split off into the various outlets in which you're watching the show. So it's really not that hard to do that, and it's a low bandwidth option. Video looks pretty good. It's not choppy. I haven't experienced any sort of like bottlenecks or anything like that, but it's a paid for service as well. But when we're talking about video coming out of the camera into video switchers with 1 frame latency or 2 frame latency, we're really talking about 140 megs per second for standard, HD, should not standard, but for HD, 1080p 60. And we're talking about 220 megs for 4K 30. Okay. So the amount of data that's really being passed is huge amounts, and that's per source. That's not total production. That's per camera or per encoder. So we really get into a conversation quickly about high performance networks when we start saying we're going to have 3 cameras and a keyboard, because we're going to have a lot of data crossing the network. So there are good ways of doing it, there are better ways of doing it, and then there are more sophisticated ways if you wanted to perhaps do static networks or multiple subnets or whatever. But it really depends on how you're designing the network and what you expect out of the network. So what are you willing to pay for the switches, and what are you willing to pay for how much time are you willing to invest in configuring the network? And this is the part of the conversation that I'll go on record here and say that salesmen don't really like to talk about. Not BirdDog salesmen, but just when you're trying to sell a concept, it's not the most desirable thing to talk about, because it does require some additional education and general knowledge about how IP networks work. But it would be foolish to assume that you don't have to know anything. You shouldn't need to know anything about IP networks, because the IP network is the catalyst in which actually transports the video across the network. So, this brings us kind of to Access Manager. Access Manager gives us the option to tell the computer, and in particular the NDI libraries that are on the computer, what's going on the network outside of the traditional NDI expected infrastructure. So if you're saying, well, John, what's kind of expected? It's like, well, from what I observed and from what I've known for the past 3 years, it appears to me that a typical NDI network is a single flat VLAN network that has its own DHCP service. So that includes multiple other things, a proper gateway, potentially internet, potentially not. That's not really required, but definitely units that are running in, or a service like a DHCP service that has proper routing and, is a proper TCP unicast network. That's out of the box what I think NDI is looking for. Something with horsepower. NewTek actually goes on record and says they don't want you to use unmanaged switches, and they talk about that in their New Tech University course. So that's actually them on record saying that. And they also say don't use smart switches, which is something that we've also been saying for quite some time. So we're in lockstep there. But a managed network, DHCP service with a DNS, MDNS service, and at least a single flat VLAN across all switches. Now, if you're doing multiple switches, obviously bigger pipes between the two is great. So you could do a gigabit connection, just a single link, but you could link aggregate those ports and do 2 gigs, or you could trunk fiber cables and get up to 20 or more. So if that's all foreign language to you, let's just stick with the single switch conversation. So we've got a managed switch, and it's in TCP mode, and it's got a DHCP service on it. That would make it a layer 3 switch, because DHCP is a layer 3 service. And so you're going to have that up and running, and it's going to be governing its own IP addresses, and it's going to be isolated from any other traffic that you see on the network. So that is how that goes. All right. Well, Access Manager then allows us to basically tell the network if other things are going on, tell the computer if other things are going on. And in particular, we can add external sources. That's kind of the first thing. I don't really know why it's the second tab, but anyways, the first thing that this thing can do is you can add external sources on other subnets. So let's say that I'm running a subnet of 192.168.10 dot something. That is my TCP network here. But I'm also running on a different switch a subnet of 192.168.20 dot something or 30 dot something. And we're all, in theory, you can, on a computer, you can see all those sources, but for encoders and decoders, you can't. And for TriCaster, I don't think you'd be able, well, you might be able to cross, I don't know particularly. But if we want, for example, to be able to see all sources on all subnets, we could add the IP sources here as external sources on a different network. So we say it's a type, it's an NDI device, and we could say 192.168, 20.15 is the camera that's over there. And the device name, the local device name, is whatever it is, BirdDog dash yada yada yada. Well, it won't be that long. Something like that, and it'll be in channel 1, and we can say okay. Then when you hit okay and you add it to the list and we click okay, it will add that source as something that the NDI library should be looking for. Okay, so let's throw NDI up here and see what we can find out. So it doesn't see anything at that source right now, but if it were to come online at that IP address, it would show it in this list as an option to pull that up. Now, I don't have multiple subnets on my own network because that's not something we're testing. We're not doing like pseudo configurations at support. We're doing, here's a proper NDI network and here's how you support it. All right, so let me pull that back up. But you can add external sources directly into Access Manager, and they will show. So I can't actually make that any bigger, can I? No, okay. All right, well, I'll put it here so that we can all see it together. Okay, the next thing we can do, so I'm going to get rid of that because that's not actually a source. Boom. Is that we can add groups. Now, groups is kind of like rooms, okay? Now, if in terms of a concept, rooms in a building. So we want to have a bunch of classrooms, and we want everybody to be on the same network, 192.168.10 dot whatever. But we don't want them all to talk to each other because the cameras inside classroom 1 don't need to communicate with the cameras inside classroom 2. So what we can do is we can set up groups and say, I want this computer, for example, like let's say this is the computer at the front of the classroom. I want this computer to only see the NDI sources and decoders inside of that room. Well, we could create a group here under receive and send called classroom 1. And we just standardize this across your entire network. So it could just be classroom 1, classroom 2, classroom 3, and so on. And you could say like, all NDI sources in classroom 1. And we could say, okay. And there, classroom 1 is now all signals can be received inside this group as classroom 1. Now we want to remove public, because if you don't, then any NDI source that's already in the public group, which by default all devices are added to the public folder. So you'd still be able to see everything. So here we want to isolate to just classroom 1. So I would remove the public group and just add classroom 1. Now inside of a BirdDog device, then BirdDog, pull up the P200, which is the camera that you're looking at right now. So inside here, I will take this. Let's just make this full screen so you can see that. Inside here, this is NDI 5, by the way. We're going to add, whoops, I need to log in. We're going to add this camera to that group so that it can be shown to any device that's in the receive group there. Now, if I were to generate NDI, by the way, on this computer, which I actually am because I'm doing a desktop capture for my third monitor, if I were to generate NDI and I want those signals to be seen by other devices in the group, I need to add the group to the send group. Okay, so Access Manager gives us that ability right here to add, classroom 1. And you could put a little memo in there if you wanted to. And when you click OK, those things get added to the NDI library that's on this machine. So this machine will know what's going on. Okay, so now that we're logged in here, we can see all of our stats, all that sort of good stuff. Boy, this is really hard to see. This is right behind a light, unfortunately, that's sitting here. Okay, so we want to, if we're going to add groups, we want to go to the NDI group list section, and we want to download the text file that is the group names, and we're going to edit this text file so that we can upload this correctly. So you'll notice that they've done us a huge favor and shown us the formatting that we need to have, to add an additional group to this text file. So we're going to say save. It's going to save it just to that downloads folder, which is where I had that. All right, we can close this now. We can say upload. Oops, sorry. Am I doing that on the right thing? Choose file. There are all the videos for the show. Let's go to downloads, group name, open, and upload. Now it's going to upload this. We're going to go back to the system page. And oh, look, classroom 1 listed on my group list. So now this camera is added to that group. Now you're going to want to take away the other groups if you don't want them to belong to these examples, for example. But now we're added, the groups are all added, and classroom 1, which is the group that we set up in here, is now added. So again, then you'd go to Studio Monitor and verify that you can see the Studio P200, which is this camera right here. So good stuff. All right, we're on track and understanding groups. Now, groups can be added to any of our fleet. The one that I'm not sure about is keyboard, but I will double check that for you and let you know. So let me jump over here real quick. Boom. Okay, so that's how you add into groups. And if you want to now, I should also add here, if you want to remove this computer from that group, you just delete them out of Access Manager. But you need to save them here and hit OK in order for Access Manager to see this group. Now, let's say you have a computer that wants to see all of the groups. You can just open Access Manager on that computer and add all of the groups to send and receive, and then you'd have access to all of those sources. But if you don't, and the cameras are out of the public group and you're out of the public group, you're not going to have access to those. So there you go. There's your little extra tidbit for the day. All right, let's just leave that. I don't need to clear that just yet. The advanced menu is the thing in Access Manager for NDI 5 that really got a big facelift, and it's super handy because it allows us to specify some very specific things about our NDI network. Now, on computers that have multiple NIC cards, sometimes you have an internet NIC card, and then you have an NDI network NIC card, an isolated NDI network. So we go to a switch and just our cameras are plugged in there. So we go to our 4250. It's in DHCP layer 3. it issues IP addresses to all of our devices that are plugged into it, and then we plug one of our NIC cards, which, like my computer, has 2 NIC ports. We plug one of those into our isolated NDI network. And so we can get internet through the internet NIC card, but we can also get the NDI signals through the other. So here you want to tell Access Manager what is the preferred NIC for your NDI network. And you can select either or of those. And you can even customize those Ethernet 2 names inside of Control Panel. So if I open Control Panel real quick and just show you this, inside here, this is Control Panel, my 2 Ethernet cards, right? We can customize these names if we wanted to, so that it would reflect correctly what whoops, cancel that. So it would reflect correctly which NIC card is which. So let's just say this is my internet and this is my NDI network. Well, you can just rename the NIC card. So that this would be, NDI network. And then here, rename, and this could be, internet. Okay, so now let's close this down, reopen Access Manager, say okay, and bring this over here. Now this NIC card, preferred NIC, should show which one is which. And so now I can say my NDI network, this is the NIC card that I prefer you to use on my computer to look for NDI sources. And that's good stuff. Let's go through some of these other things, but that one I really like. If you're running a discovery server or discovery servers, you need to tell Access Manager, and this isn't a discovery server tutorial, so we'll maybe do that another day. But you need to tell Access Manager, for example, if you need this computer to know where those discovery servers are and where those sources are on that network, this is where you would put in, for this computer's knowledge, where those discovery servers are located. So what IP addresses are those discovery servers running at? So the nice thing, too, about this new version is that you can just put commas in between IP addresses and put multiple discovery servers inside Access Manager. So it provides an ability to do redundancy. It also provides an ability to do multiple discovery servers for multiple networks or for a single flat VLAN. For example, if you wanted to separate networks just using discovery server, you can do that now, but give master control to a TriCaster or whatever. You just put in multiple discovery servers and it will catalog all of those sources at all of those discovery servers. It's really sweet. And Discovery Server, again, this isn't a DS tutorial, but Discovery Server is like the unsung hero of the NDI toolkit, which is now included, by the way, in NDI 5 tools. The Discovery Server, you don't have to download the SDK, you can get it off of the tools. Discovery Server is really slick. It does several things. It simplifies a lot of stuff, and it's really the only way to properly do static networks. So there you go. There's your little tidbit. You have to come back and find out why another day. Ooh, I should. We'll check up in the chat in just a minute. So DS is actually really the unsung hero, and if you're using multiples, this is where you put that information in. Okay. This here is telling your computer what type of packets you should be expected to receive, that this computer should expect to receive when it comes to NDI. By default, I believe that it's TCP, single TCP. Auto is recommended. However, if you're using multicast, or I'm sorry, if you're using multi-TCP network layouts, you're using multiple ports, you have to tell it that. And if you're using the new RUDP, which is an NDI 5 packet protocol, then you definitely need to tell it that here in Access Manager. So the RUDP profiles are on the 4250s, for example. And if you're using that, then go into Access Manager and tell your computer, expect RUDP packets, because they operate differently than unicast or TCP packets. So that's where you would tell your computer that you're using the new RUDP standard. Okay, lastly, I think, let me look at network mapping. We'll talk about device aliasing as well, I guess. Last is the multicast stuff. If you're using a multicast network, then then you should know this information, or your IT department should know this information and be able to tell you exactly what you need to put in here. But multicast is different than unicast. And inside the BirdDog devices, people just think, okay, I want to use multicast. So I'm just going to go to, what is it, networking, and I'm just going to change it to multicast. And now I'm using multicast. No, that is not a multicast network. That is you changing a setting on a device and telling it, broadcast multicast packets. My network is expecting it. Most networks, especially out of the box networks that you've plugged in from your router from Best Buy, are going to be unicast TCP networks or UDP if they're real, if it's a lack of quality router, that's what you're going to need to do. So you need to set up a multicast network first, get the information that's going to be required, change it here to multicast and fill in this information correctly, and then go to Access Manager and also add that information into the multicast area to tell the computer you should be expecting multicast packets out of these NDI devices. So, that's how you properly do that. But anyways, that's where you would set the multicast information. By default, by the way, it's generally these default settings because this is what the SDK on the NDI stuff expects. And so if you're not doing a highly customized multicast packet stuff, it may just be this stuff that's set to default. But check with your IT department if not. And then the NDI device aliases. This is basically if you're generating NDI off of your computer and you want it to have a specific group name, this is where you would set that. So you could say that you want it to say something else like, Knudsen Studio or something like that. I don't know why you would want it to be called Studio. And I can barely see this screen. Hang on, let me make sure that this is spelled correctly. Yeah, okay. So Knudsen Studio, and you can hit OK. When you hit OK, then the changes that you've made will apply. So if you make the changes to Access Manager, but you still have it open, they haven't been applied yet. Once you hit OK, then it saves it to the NDI library, and then it's off and running. So now, I don't actually, am I generating any NDI? That's the TC1. I don't know if I'm actually generating NDI. I may need to restart the studio monitor. Actually get that to go. Knudsen Studio. Look at that. So it changed my NDI name, my computer name, to Knudsen Studio. That's what it does. So now any sources that I'm generating out of here should actually. Oh, I'm not doing desktop capture. Hang on one second. What's it called now? Screen share? Screen capture. Okay, so now I turn that on. So now the sources, Knudsen Studio, boom. There are my 3 screens that are being generated out of my graphics card. So that's how you change your name if you want to be generating NDI off of your computer and sending it into the NDI network. Okay, let's just go back. So Access Manager now. So that's the general gist of things when it comes to Access Manager. Now, let's talk about how that integrates in with BirdDog products. And we already talked about this with groups. We should briefly talk about Discovery Server, and then we should talk about decoders, because the decoders is the issue when it comes to Access Manager and groups and all that sort of good stuff. So those are the things we're going to cover next. So, for example, if you had, so here is where you put the IP address of your BirdDog device if it was on a different subnet. There's actually no configuration required on the BirdDog side. If you have a device on a different subnet, there's no configuration required. You would go to this side of the receive side of the network where you want to see the source and put it in Access Manager here. And then this computer will be able to check the NDI libraries on its own subnet and also ping that one that you put here saying there's also an NDI source at that location on that subnet at this IP address. Also check there. And so then the computer will, boom, if the computer is permitted to cross subnets, and check that IP address for that one source. So there's that. Inside groups, again, this is where you add the groups for, in our case, classroom number 1. On the BirdDog device, which I already showed you, you would upload a new group list name, but only include the groups that you want this product to be a part of. By default, it's always a part of the public group. So it will broadcast on public. You need to know that. But if you add classroom 1, as my example, it will also broadcast to that group. But it will be isolated then. You won't be able to see it in other groups or, unless they all belong to the public list. So it broadcasts on public, but if you remove everything and just add this, then it will broadcast on public and classroom. If I don't want to see those sources, I need to delete this. Okay. And this is all ungrouped NDI sources. So if you put it in a group, then it's no longer a part of the public group, which reminds me, I should probably go back and clear that after this show. Okay, so that's how we do groups, which is one of the big features with Access Manager is getting them in the right baskets and then making sure that the correct devices on that network can see that. Now, you do the group process on a Flex Out the same way that you do the group process on a P200. Okay, you add it to the group list. And then when you click search, it will search that group. It'll search its IP list, but only those that match the group name, and then deliver those as options. So it's a way to isolate your NDI sources without needing to know a whole lot about IP configuration and VLANs and all that sort of good stuff. It's actually quite intuitive, to be quite honest with you. The last item is the discovery server portion. And this one, I'm going to turn that off because I don't need that. The discovery servers is also it's actually a more intuitive way to do groups, because you can quickly add things to a discovery server. But on the BirdDog side of things, and I'm going to pull up the P200 here because I should show you this while I do it. On the BirdDog side of things, you want to you can add things to, where is it here? It's under networking, perhaps. They've moved some of this stuff, so I'm a little rusty. Yeah, NDI Discovery Server. Okay, so here you run the product in DHCP mode. It gets an IP address. That's all well and good. But you want to have, boxes, if you will. When you turn on Discovery Server, what it tells the BirdDog device to do is to basically stop broadcasting your information, stop telling everybody who you are. Right now in Studio Monitor, like if Studio Monitor is still open here, if I look at this is just finding sources that are saying, here I am. I'm not running DS, by the way. Here I am. This is where I'm at. This is what I've got. This is, I'm a PF 120, or we can look at Auburn Road, which is outside my office. Here is this camera. Ooh, that was a Mustang. This camera is just looking at, it's just broadcasting its information saying, here's my stream source. And if you want to look at it, go ahead. If I were to point this camera at a discovery server, inside Studio Monitor, it would no longer show up as an option, because I've told the BirdDog, stop broadcasting your information and send your broadcast info only to this IP address. And so the camera stops sending out the broadcast. It actually lightens the load of the network slightly and starts saying, hey, thing on the network that has Discovery Server, here's my information. Here's my information. Here's my information. It only sends those packets to where I've told it, only communicate your info with this computer. And Discovery Server, if it's up and running, will catalog that information as a source on the network. And then I can tell Access Manager, hey, there is a Discovery Server on this network that I want you to look at. And it's going to be at 192.168.1.12 or whatever. And I can say, okay. And then it will begin to search the network for sources in addition to the ones that it already sees. It will start looking at the Discovery Server for those sources that are only communicating with the Discovery Server. So Studio Monitor doesn't stop, by the way, or your computer doesn't stop looking and asking for sources and gathering data from the network. But it then can also see all sources that are pointed at the Discovery Server that are not broadcasting on the network like this. And so if you were to do your entire network with Discovery services, which run on Windows PC, it's a little extra work, and it's not quite as isolated as the groups thing. But I actually think it's more counterintuitive, because Discovery Server has a live service that runs constantly and knows when things are online and offline. And so super helpful that way. So BirdDog interacts with Access Manager in multiple ways, in particular with groups and Discovery Server. But that is how you do it. That's how you tell, or that's what you would configure in Inside Access Manager to get your bird dogs to talk correctly with AM. So hopefully that's helpful. I'm going to wrap up that portion of that speech. That was a good 30 minutes just talking that through. And yeah, reach out to us at help@birddog.tv if you have any additional questions, or join us on Tuesday, Thursdays for our live chat that we do. Okay, enough of that. Let's jump over here. It looks like somebody's been helping me get more my ratings up. So this says, what the H is this? How about you stream Bat Dance by Prince? Type this emoji for Bat Dance. You should play Bat Dance and start bat dancing. Your ratings will go up. Okay, cool. Well, I really appreciate the suggestion. It's not really what we're doing here, but thanks for stopping by. Thanks for putting some stuff in the chat. I appreciate that. And what we're actually doing here is providing an avenue for people to communicate with a camera manufacturing company to figure out their problems, because a lot of people don't like help desk tickets. And so they don't want to put in an email. They prefer to talk to somebody. And we don't have the bandwidth to run a full on like call center. So this is our response to that, is being available and live and hopefully knowledgeable enough to help people with their real questions. Hey, Daniel says, at some point, I'd love to see a case study or demo of the 3D positional data in the P120 for virtual productions, but I know that's ridiculously intense and specialized. Well, we actually had a pseudo example running at NAB this year in Vegas, where who was it? We had Unreal. They had a computer at our booth running the 3D stuff out of was a P200? I think it was a P200. Anyways, but they had a 3D environment with the P200, and then they had, like a, well, it was basically just a 3D whatever, a 3D rendering of something, so in a virtual space while the camera was running. It was really quite cool. And it was just our logo with a big bird dog symbol and whatever. But that was a live demo. I don't know if they did any sort of like capture of that, like if they video captured it and had somebody explain it. I don't think they did. I haven't seen anything about that, but it would be helpful to have that. Yes, it would, because the 3D stuff, it's interesting that you mentioned that, Daniel, because the 3D stuff is specialized, but it's the reason why we have it is for those specialized reasons, like for those customers that need that specialized thing. Otherwise, we wouldn't use it. So, yeah, the real world example, it definitely was at NAB. You did miss that, but yeah, having that in like a webinar or something like that would probably be also crazy helpful. Let me talk to the sales guys and see if any of them know of a recording of that being used, or if they'd be willing to put it together, or it coming on the show and talking through how that actually works. So because we could bring their screens in and stuff too. So yeah, let me see. Maybe we'll put that on the schedule for later. It's a great idea. Exactly what I'd like to see, since I couldn't go. Our sister company hasn't gotten deep into Unreal yet. Yeah, and that's partially it. We're providing the code. Well, my glasses are like all jacked up here. We're providing the ability to integrate with 3D, but we're not doing, like, support doesn't have a 3D environment running right now. This is just not something that we're seeing a lot of traffic on. So, and I know too, like the NDI 5 beta is poised for release like in the next couple of weeks, as far as I understand it, if not sooner. So hopefully they will have some sort of training on that once that launches. At least documentation, that's for sure. All right. Just making sure that's all good to go. All right. It's 11:40. It's the perfect solution for a 2-camera green screen shoot. We're definitely looking forward to using it at some point. Awesome. Well, if you get underway with that, we would love to see some use cases for that, because that would be very helpful to have available for other folks to see if you ever get into that. So I am going to jump over to Facebook real quick, actually, and just put this on the user group. I realized Since we've changed to this interview style format with StreamYard, I haven't been posting in the user group. Oh, whoops. I need to post this on my own behalf. We've got to put the time zone in here because you show up at noon and they're like, "Oh, hey, you're getting started." And I'm like, "No, I'm finishing up." All right, so post that on the user group real quick. Yoink. And whoops. So, hey, Daniel, your green screen shoot. I've always had this issue with green screen stuff. In particular, whenever I see like new tech produce like the news desk type of scenario, I always think it looks so like space agey. like it's so obvious that that is not your studio. And I know why they're doing it for budgetary reasons and whatever. So you could green screen it, put them in a virtual environment. But there has to be a balance between the fake environment and the real environment. Like typically you would use a tool to complement what you already have. But a lot of folks are just doing straight up, like if you look at a lot of smaller European country news broadcasts, it's clearly it is a desk with a green screen behind it, and then it's this like pseudo environment. So I'm trying to figure out a way. Hey, what's going on, Balu? Trying to figure out a way, at least like strike a good balance between um like the I don't know, the fake environment versus the real world environment, to where it just doesn't seem like overproduced, because to me it actually disconnects the viewer with what's trying to be done. It's like, it's like the backgrounds in Zoom when you put like, some sort of huge corporate building behind you. It looks like you're working in a place with 50,000 other employees. And it's like, no, like obviously you don't work there. Nobody's moving in the background. Or some ridiculous background, that's just obvious that that's not real. I think it actually disconnects the customer or the client who's watching whatever it is that you're producing with what it is you're trying to portray, what message you're trying to give away. And so I don't like green screens in general unless they're done pretty tastefully and conservatively. Um, I'm always interested to know, though, where people line up on that conversation and how they, like what's the demographic of people that really enjoy those, overproduced environments. I know that the 3D stuff is starting to like interject real cameras and real world environments with, obviously some of those elements, but there's got to be a, um, kind of like a balance between both of those in order to make it work. Lighting matching is the hardest thing to do to get it right, for it to look at. Ooh, that's a great observation. I would actually 100% agree with that. Is that if your lighting is off, then it's so weird. Green screen is the worst. Hey, what's going on, video people? Thanks for coming along. Put me on Mars while I'm telling people about the weather. Yeah, exactly. That's precisely what we're talking about. Oh, hey. Oh, want to be famous? Thanks. No, I don't want to be famous. See, with the Zoom background, usually it's perspective not matching, so, or lighting not matching, or the blur is too strong for people to, yeah. And the blur, the blur cutout, right? If you don't have a green screen, is always kind of loose, and so you like kind of see through, like past their shoulders, what's going on. And to me, again, that's super distracting. So I'd rather just clean up my room, and show my office than blur it all out and to cause an additional distraction. But whatever. Clearly, for short films and movies, that you can do green screens properly. But if you do it on the cheap and you don't pay attention, it'll look like trash. That's why I like Apple's camera blur on M1 computers, since it isn't as strong as Zoom or Teams. Oh, that's interesting. I should check that out because I don't know the distinction between those 2. That's a good observation. Oh, thanks for sharing that. Um, I haven't figured out a way. It doesn't look like there's a way where StreamYard will let me delete comments, but anyways, well, that's probably for another conversation for another day. Oh man. Um, yeah, so I've just been having coffee today. Feeling pretty good about that. Um, we are for those of you who are watching this around the time that it was created. Oh, hey, Control Center over video effects. Yeah, ah, gosh, I've been really tempted to buy another Mac for my home. So I have a work computer. It's a MacBook Air. It's an M1. It's a pretty decent machine, but it's got 8 gigs of RAM, and it's like pulling my hair out trying to get it to do anything. Specifically, video rendering. So, as some of you may know, I was an early adopter to virtual reality, and when it really kind of hit like mainstream about 5-6 years ago, and I bought the original HTC Vive headset. I've talked about this on probably over a year ago at this point. Bought the original headset, and about a year ago, I bought the next one, which was the HTC Vive Elite or something like that. Good headset, better resolution, picture looks better. But man, that thing eats up processing power to render, videos or games or anything like that. Now, not Flight Simulator, X-Plane 11 does a VR cockpit, which is like so cool. It gives you a real world sizing of how big an airplane, actually how small an airplane actually is when you're, in a Cessna or whatever. So that was really, really neat. Gives you good spatial awareness. But anyways, all that to say, I got into taking videos of my family, my kids, with a 360 camera. Insta360 has several, and I bought when it was available the Insta Evo, which is basically a 360 camera, but also has the ability to do 180 VR. And so you could do like 3D videos, and then you put the headset on, and there you go. So I've recorded Christmas morning when the kids come down to the tree in 3D, so that their grandparents, who all live several hours away, can visit and see the kids' reactions on Christmas morning. Recently, BirdDog Dexter passed away, and I didn't realize it until now, but he is prominent in all of those videos, and so I can see him in 3D and see his face and all that sort of good stuff again. And so there's like these all these like hidden values. Back in 2019, this is kind of when I bought it. We went on a vacation, my wife and I, to Alaska, and I took that camera with the intention of showing my little kids who were like 4 and 1 or something like that at the time, showing them that trip. Well, they didn't appreciate it when it came back because they're quite young. But now, all these years later, I show them those videos and they can like walk around the streets of Ketchikan with us. And that has been really cool. Like, really cool to watch them discover and explore videos that I made. So, the issue, however, in all of this is it's so hard to render 360 videos or 180 videos because they're so huge. They get filmed in 5.7K and then get rendered and compressed and aligned and all that good stuff. And on top of all of that, the audio sucks on that camera. And so I have a 3DO Studio spatial camera, binaural camera, or I'm sorry, microphone, and I've added that, and now I'm trying to like marry the two together. And to do all of that, iMovie will do the audio and video portion fine, but to render the actual 360 video into a format that's acceptable and not astronomically big takes an immense amount of processing power. And so the MacBook Air is fine, but I really need some sort of more like horsepower. So I've been looking at getting a different Apple computer for the house, mostly for this, for this need. But I'm tempted to wait on the MacBook Pro M2 chip, which was just announced and is out next month, just to have it for two or 3 years, and work really well. So, anyways, my bad. Those were arrows. So, control center. Oh, 2 video effects. So when the camera is active in portrait mode. Oh, he had it in his office. What did I have in my office? Sorry, I got yakking and then I totally forgot what that comment was for, Balu. Control center video effects when the camera is active portrait mode. Yeah, okay. I can check that out. Actually, well, it won't be on my iPhone. But oh shoot, I've been getting text messages. Yeah, okay. I will get back to that in a bit. Vive. Oh yeah. Yes. The Vive is, well, it's in my home office, not in this office. I don't have a computer here powerful enough to run something like that. But it would be oh, there's an interesting thought. Well, anyways, more on that later. So yeah, I used to have it in my office at my previous employment, and because I couldn't stand people. And so I would wear a headset and do a virtual desktop. So there's a program called Virtual Desktop, and basically it like puts you in a 3D space, but puts your screens inside of the headset. And so I would slap that on and just answer tickets inside of a virtual world. The issue that I had with that is those headsets get hot. They get so sweaty. And so you need a fan blowing on you at all times just to like make that work. And I didn't have a whole lot of space to really use that headset, but the new one has an internal fan, but it still gets really warm. Whatever. Yes, I did use it back at our previous employ, and worked pretty well actually. Like that virtual environment did cut out a lot of distractions because although you're in a 3D space, it definitely cuts out all of the visual distractions that go on, so you can stay focused on your job. Anyways, that's what I told myself at least. Awesome. But I do like the new one, the Vive Elite, which I don't know if it's new or if it's just like the next one around. Let's take a look. Yeah, I just bought the headset. And because I didn't need to buy the controllers, thankfully still work with, all of the controllers still work with the same headset and towers and everything. So what I really tempted to do is buy 2 new towers and have 4 in the room to do, like a triangular, or not triangular, well, one in each corner, I guess. So anyways, this is the headset. It works pretty well. It has a camera. Like I haven't even really gotten into it a whole lot other than this using virtual desktop, playing videos from our trip from Alaska, and then doing what's it called? Well, there's a couple other games that I play, but the virtual desktop thing. So it's good. It's good stuff. It's not a whole lot of VR games. Like when it first came out, VR like started ramping up a bit. I was like, okay, cool. I'll get on the front end of this, and that'll be really helpful. Like, the cool stuff will come along. And they talked about having like a VR Star Wars game, and I haven't seen anything from about that recently, which I would eat that up, man. There's like Repair Bay, which is a game, but that's nothing. Whatever. All good. Okay, well, chat's pretty quiet. We got another 5 minutes. I won't cut you short. We did start on time today. You are welcome. But it's because I also really wanted to cover that Access Manager stuff, and just kind of show the examples of what that does. So if you have questions, of course, as always, reach out to us at help@birddog.tv. I've got a couple of agents that are in that desk every day, mostly for the weekdays. They do have weekends off because they have families and lives and all that sort of good stuff. But we are real people answering your tickets. Please be as detailed as possible. The one-liner tickets, you will always get a response back saying, please send more details or a video or photos or something. So if you just send us a one-liner, or if you fill out the ticket in the title, the subject of the ticket, that's also amusing. We should probably put together like a help desk ticket wall of shame, and you might get nominated. So there you go. There's also that option. Dude, I love this microphone. Bing bong noise. Yeah. You are not kidding, dude. If this is a reference to the IT crowd, basically someone calling in and just saying broken over and over and over and hoping that we'll fix it. That's not how it works, folks. That's not how any of this works. So but we are more than happy to give you a hand. And, in extreme circumstances where we need a remote in and assess a problem or whatever, we can do that too. We're trying really hard. It kind of comes and goes in waves in terms of um, how busy we are. So it kind of ebbs and flows, and we will try and get that in. There's a lot of folks that, like I said, there's a lot of people that are upset because we don't offer a telephone service like the 1960s. And our response to that really is this show. If you have questions and you want to know, you need to talk to somebody live, we are on here twice a week for at least an hour. We go from 12 or 11 to 12 Eastern time every week. And if you really need to speak to somebody, we are here. I respond in live format. I don't normally do tutorials like I did today with Access Manager because we've done many of those, but we can do tutorials, or we can sit and answer questions that you have that come up. Even if you have a ticket in and you would like to discuss, how that's going, I can pull up the help desk here on the show and answer those things in live time. So if you feel like you're having a hard time sorting it out or you're not getting anywhere or whatever, yes, definitely let us know here on the show, and I'll walk through what it is that we're doing. If it's really something that like we got a remote in, well, we can't do that here on live. But yeah, we'd be happy to give you a hand with that. That's one of the purposes of the show. Another side of it is we want to expose you guys to people in the industry, and so I'm going to invite guests on as time goes along to join us. They may be BirdDog guys, they may not be, or gals. They could be guys or girls. We actually do have women employed in the company. It was all men for a while, but that was just for no reason other than the positions we hired, they were filled by men. So, but now we've got several ladies that work for us. So they're all in Melbourne right now, as far as I understand. So it's unlikely they're going to be on this show because it's currently 2 a.m. in the morning, and most of that team is asleep. Eamon might actually be awake, but the rest of them are probably sleeping. Eamon works all sorts of hours, man. That guy just, he amazes me with his ability to function with the schedule he keeps. It's impressive to say the least. Cool. So yes, I have access to the desk. So if you have a question about a ticket that you have ongoing and you want to talk about it here in a live form, no problem. We can do that. Happy to talk you through that sort of stuff. So reach out to us. Help at birddog.tv. That's our primary place for support. I promise you, there are guys that actively work on tickets. We try and get back to you within 2 days. Quite frankly, we do pretty well and over exceeding that goal, and we're rarely taking more than 2 days or 2 days at all to get back to you. So reach out to us there. But if you don't like tickets, we are live where you can talk to me in the chat on YouTube and on Twitch to send in your questions, talk about your tickets, all that sort of good stuff. A couple of hours a week. We try and do that on purpose. So feel free to come hang out with us. Plus, I feel like we're friendly. We do some fun stuff. We eat spicy food every now and then, at least once a week. And you get to watch me react and recommend or not recommend food. To be honest with you, I really thought this spicy ramen challenge that we do on Thursdays was going to be painful. And I'm kind of enjoying it right now. Like, it's wearing on me where, yeah, I might eat some of those packs again. So last week I ate the cheese one and might do something a little spicier. I really like the curry one we had a couple of weeks ago, so I need to probably try that one again, get a good understanding of it. But yeah, we do that. We do some fun stuff here, but it really is a live forum for you to ask your questions. So feel free to reach out to us here 11 to 12 Eastern time, which it is currently 12:01 right now. So I'm going to call it. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Thanks for keeping the chat going for those of you guys who are over there and for the NDI chatter. Hopefully, you found the Access Manager refresher somewhat useful and you got a better idea as to why you should or shouldn't use that in your NDI device or in your NDI environments. Remember, just because there are tools doesn't necessarily mean you need to use all the tools. There are things to make your environments better, and Access Manager is one of those things, but sometimes it doesn't apply. We actually don't use Access Manager here in our flat NDI testing network across our computers because we have a bench that has its own isolated network with no internet, and that's for strictly for testing customers' products and making sure they're operating as we expect them to. And then we have a general network that does do NDI, but does a few other things. It's a data/NDI network, and that's more for general testing, but we use NDI. This is actually on that network, so we use that information or that NDI network for various things, and just kind of like real world scenario type of stuff. So we have a couple of networks, but we don't use Access Manager in this office as a everyday thing. We will use it to test items, but we don't use it as like an implementation because in some environments it makes sense and sometimes it doesn't. And so you need to make the right choice for you and then learn as much as you can about the things that you do choose to put online. So anyways, hopefully that refresher was helpful. And if you have any questions, reach out to us at help@birddog.tv and we can give you a hand. Otherwise, meet me back here on Thursday from 11 to 12 and might be trying to invite some guys to hang out with me. And it won't just be me talking to myself because, that's not always fun. It is fun sometimes, but not always. So be well, take care of yourselves, and we will see you guys in the next one. Cheers. Later.